At the beginning of this summer, I was convinced that it was going to be my summer. The summer where Pretty Pineapple Bead finally took off. The summer where I wasn't the broke bee anymore. But seriously though, I had my busiest market schedule ever. Almost 50 markets on my calendar. I set a goal of making $10,000 during market season because I desperately wanted to buy a newer, more reliable SUV. I did the math. If I averaged about $213 per market, I could actually do it. And honestly, I believed I could. But now we're more than halfway through the market season, and things haven't exactly gone according to plan. Yet somehow, I think this has become one of the best summers of my life. Hey friend, welcome back to Sparkle and Shine. I'm your host, Cassandra, and this is the podcast where we talk about building a small business, chasing your dreams, and learning the real lessons along the way. Each week, I'll be sharing what I'm learning in my own business, the wins, the struggles, and the lessons that come along with it. So if you're building something of your own too, you're definitely in the right place. All right, let's get into today's episode. I thought this summer was going to change my business. Looking back now, I think it's funny how sure I was. When I started filling my calendar with markets this spring, I remember sitting there looking at all those dates thinking, this is it. This was the busiest market season I had ever booked. Almost 50 different events, week after week after week. I was excited. I was hopeful. I was nervous too. There was one stretch where I had 6 market days in a row, and I remember thinking, oof, this is going to be a lot. But honestly, I couldn't wait. I love doing markets. I know there are makers who would rather stay home and sell online. And don't get me wrong, I would absolutely love to grow my online business too. But there's something special about markets. I love watching people walk into my booth. I love seeing them stop, look around, and smile because they're suddenly surrounded by color. I love hearing someone say, "Oh my gosh," before they've even picked something up. I love watching people stack bracelets together or hold earrings up in the mirror. And I especially love the repeat customers, the people who come back year after year or week after week, because they remember me. And that never gets old. The goal wasn't really about the money. I think that's something I should explain. When I said I had a $10,000 goal, it wasn't because I wanted some crazy lavish lifestyle. Honestly, I just wanted a car, a dependable one. Right now, I drive a 2012 Chevy Cruze, and I've had that little car for like 10 years now. When I bought it, I loved it. It was reliable, it fit my life perfectly, but life changes. My business has grown, my booth has grown, and honestly, my little Cruze feels like she's worked really hard. She's hauled tables, tents, jewelry, display racks, thousands and thousands of beads to hundreds of events. She's carried this dream all over Minnesota, and I'm grateful for that. But she's tired, kind of like me. I don't want some luxury SUV. I just want something safe, reliable, something that will fit the life I'm building today instead of the life I was living 10 years ago. So that $10,000, it wasn't just a random number. It represented freedom, it represented security, it represented believing. Maybe this business could finally provide that. Then reality showed up. The very first Monday market, I made $25. Yeah, 25. And if I'm being completely honest, that sale, one sale, it came from the volunteer who was working the event. And I remember driving home thinking, well, maybe next week will be better. Except next week wasn't much better. And then the week after that. The problem wasn't just that one slow market. The problem was that market happened every single Monday, and it was on the calendar 15 times. So when one market consistently struggles, it quietly changes the math for your entire season. Every week, I found myself recalculating. Okay, maybe I just need one really good Thursday. Maybe next Wednesday will make up for it. Maybe, 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 maybe. And then Mother Nature decided she had opinions too. This summer's been hot. Like standing outside feeling like you're being air fried hot. There were days where it was 100 degrees, with the feels like temperature even higher, and days with wildfire smoke, days where I couldn't drink enough water, days where even standing in front of my little fan felt amazing until the wind blew all the cool air away. And speaking of wind, oh my gosh, the wind. I'll never forget that one market. I had already changed my booth layout a couple of times because I didn't trust some of my displays with how strong the wind was that day. I thought I had it all figured out, and then all of a sudden, my heavy pineapple necklace stands started sliding across my table. They slammed right into the bowls full of my bracelets, and bracelets flew everywhere off of the table. The first time, I laughed. The second time, I sighed. By the third time, I honestly wanted to cry. Then the organizer came around and said, if anyone wants to pack up early today. Yeah, I don't think she even finished the sentence before I mentally had decided, yep, I'm done. I had my booth packed and loaded in what felt like record time. I mean, I think it was less than 10 minutes, and I was already driving down the road. Sometimes perseverance means pushing through. And sometimes perseverance means recognizing you've reached your limit for the day. You're done. But here's the funny part. When I think about this summer, those aren't actually the stories I remember first. I remember the teenage couple who sat down at my bead bar. He made a keychain with her name, she made one with his, and I just remember smiling the whole time because it was just so sweet. I remember walking into my booth one evening and finding a tiny purple rubber duck sitting there waiting for me. Whoever left it just wanted to brighten someone's day. And purple happens to be my favorite color. I still have it, actually. And then I remember one of the hardest days of the season. It was that windy day I had been describing. The wind had been relentless. I was frustrated, discouraged, honestly, just emotionally drained. And then a man quietly walked into my booth carrying a container full of old costume jewelry. He set it down, looked at me, and said, "That's for you." And then he walked away. He had no idea that he had given me exactly what I needed. Not because of the jewelry itself, although I absolutely love taking apart old jewelry and giving it new life, but because it really reminded me people are kind, and sometimes encouragement shows up in really unexpected ways. The numbers don't tell the whole story. There are customers who've come back almost every single week this summer just to make another pen or keychain at my bead bar. There's another customer who comes back every single year and keeps adding to her pretty pineapple bead collection. Those moments don't show up on a spreadsheet. Neither does splitting a pretzel with my husband at one market or making it our little tradition to grab a shaved ice together at another. None of those things count towards my $10,000 goal, but they've become some of my favorite memories. And that really made me stop and think, how often do we measure success only by the things we can count, like sales, orders, followers, downloads, money? Those things all matter, absolutely. But remember, they are not the whole story. Somewhere along the way, this stopped being a story about my business, and it started becoming a story about me. I've talked a little bit on recent episodes about reconnecting with myself. about slowing down, about noticing butterflies, dragonflies, birds, flowers, even the little moth that decided my booth was a great place to spend the afternoon yesterday. A year ago, I probably would have rushed right past those little moments. This year, I've actually been present enough to notice them. And I think that's the biggest thing this summer has given me. It's not bigger sales, not the SUV, not the $10,000, but presence, joy, peace. And I don't think I've ever been more myself. That doesn't mean I'm not disappointed. I want to be honest about that too. Right now, I don't think I'm going to hit that goal. And yes, that hurts. It feels like I'm letting myself down, especially knowing that I'm also getting ready to go back to work part-time. That wasn't part of the vision I had in my head this spring. But I don't feel defeated. And that surprised me because a few years ago, I would have believed that missing the goal meant I completely failed. Today, I don't believe that anymore. This season has still been wildly successful, just not in the way I originally measured it. If I could go back and sit beside the version of me that was loading the car for that very first market, I would tell her this: you're going to have days where you make only $19. You're going to have days where the wind throws bracelets all over the parking lot. You're going to have days where you're standing in 100-degree heat wondering why on earth you signed up for this. But keep showing up. Every single market has something to teach you. Sometimes it'll teach you about business. Sometimes it'll teach you about resilience. Sometimes it'll introduce you to a customer that you'll never forget. And sometimes, without you even realizing it, it will teach you who you are. When I first started planning today's episode, I thought I was recording a mid-season market check-in. A little update, some sales numbers, maybe some funny stories. But somewhere while writing, I realized this episode isn't really about markets. It's about this summer, because it wasn't just a season full of markets. This was a season of becoming myself again. Financially, this summer hasn't gone the way I hoped. But personally, I honestly don't think I've ever felt more like me. And maybe that's the reminder I want to leave you with today. Sometimes the goal you set at the beginning of a season won't be the thing that changes your life. Sometimes the thing that changes your life is the person you become while you're chasing it. So, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me, and I hope you'll join me again next week. Until next time, keep showing up with heart, believe in yourself, and keep shining.